Rick? I'd like to call to order tonight's regular meeting for the Bedford County School Board, Thursday, April 10th, 2025. Ms. Johnson, Ms. Purvis did notify me that she will not be attending tonight, so if you will, please take the roll.
Mr. Hill, Mr. M. Hill,
Here.
Mr. Daniels,
Here.
Mr. S. Hill,
Here.
Mr. Holbrook,
Here.
Dr. Hubach, Mr. Knight.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holbrook. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. If you will, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You will please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A8 for consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel.
I have a motion by Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Hubach. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're now in closed session. right, do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Hubach. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Johnson, if you will, certify closed session.
Whereas Bedford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and where Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bedford County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Yes.
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 All right, 3.01, Mr. Dupere, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I'd like to address a couple issues tonight and just bring some highlight to some things that we're doing as we move forward. Starting in July 2025, the Superintendent's report and executive team will begin to highlight the progress of one of our 4 goals in the BCPS strategic framework, also called the strategic plan. As you are familiar, Bedford County Public Schools strategic framework is dedicated to setting high academic expectations and supporting all students. Goal number 2, to create safe and supportive learning environments. Goal number 3, in creating an exemplary workforce. And goal number 4, to develop mutually supportive partnerships with families and community organizations. Each month, we will discuss at least one strategy within the selected goal, in an effort to create a transparent viewpoint of what we do and why across all campuses of BCPS in pursuit of the academic excellence in education. The next item refers to an executive order that was issued in January, and on April 3rd, 2025, the U.S. Department of Education requested for school divisions of the state and local education agencies to state their positions, on the use of diversity, equity, and inclusion, based on a recent federal executive order 14173 issued on January 21st, 2025, entitled Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. The original request of the U.S. Department of Education, now taken up by the Virginia Department of Education, is to bring schools back in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 that both prohibit discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. More recently, the Supreme Court in 2023 upheld that race-based affirmative action programs in the case of Students versus Fair Admissions versus Harvard were illegal because they violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of Title VI. The school board, BCPS, addressed discrimination compliance in the creation of policy INB, which I went through and explained last month, in June 8th of 2023, entitled Teaching About Controversial Issues, which is mindful that all children are created equal and that race in Clause A says no one race, ethnicity, religion, disability status, or sex is not inherently superior or inferior to another race, ethnicity, religion, disability status, or sex. The full BCPS policy can be found in our webpage on Board Docs, Policies, Instructional Program Pull-Downs. BCPS will continue to faithfully ensure that all students have the right to a safe, supported, and accepting learning environment. This means that we will continue to provide resources for students with disabilities, EL students, and gifted programs as well. This is stated in policy IMB. As a commitment to our ongoing fair treatment of the students, BCPS has filed its assurance letter to the Office of the Superintendent of Virginia, Department of Education, on April 7th to substantiate our commitment and application to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and Executive Order, 14173, regarding discrimination. As I understand, there will be litigation in courts as we move through this, but we've already established that we will adhere to becoming or being a non-discriminatory school division. The second item I'd like to, again, I don't want this poster to go unnoticed on a regular basis. As we prepare for the closing weeks of the 24-25 school year, I want to go back and again thank the hard work of the teachers, the faculty, the administrators, the leadership teams, the staff members that are basically on the integral part of training and working with our kids, because they have put us where we are as you follow these numbers over the last 5 or 6 years. And so we're quite proud of that. We have ordered posters for every school to go into the main lobbies so that the parents can see that, and we're going to start using this on a regular basis as best we can, just to get the public and the parents in our division to understand the quality of instruction that we are giving to these students. And so you'll continue to see this on a monthly basis. As we move forward, we are looking at the SOL window opening up here. We have declared to the Virginia Department of Education that we will start the SOL testing window on April 21st. That's the day after we come back from spring break, and it runs through May 16th, with the option of using the last week of school should there need to be any retakes. At present, I would like to say this to teachers, because I've heard it, and to parents, I've heard it for years, and I need to echo this tonight. As we move into this phase, make sure, parents, that your kids are rested before they come for SOLs and that they are well fed. And if they are coming to school to eat, get them to school on time so that they are well fed and so that we can get them in the best academic condition that we can so that they can actually perform to the best of their ability, which we know they can do. So parents, to your children, I say get them rest, get them well fed, and get them in the right frame of mind when they leave in the morning to come to school. The next thing I want to point to is just the hard work of the PPEA and the construction and maintenance projects. You see on the screen right now that there are a host of things that are starting to be addressed right now. And so I want to go through those real quick. I want to keep those in the center of everything that we discuss about how we take care of our facilities. So if you look at this, the BPS school gymnasium, we broke ground on that in the last month. The Liberty High School, Stanton River High School auditoriums and walkways are being addressed and prepared for construction in the month of probably end of April, May. We are addressing the Boonesboro Elementary lighting, the Bedford Elementary lighting, Boonesboro atrium, which has had some leaks in the past, the Forest Elementary, Big Island metal roof painting, the New London Academy VCT floor replacement, completion of the middle school field at Forest Middle, Bedford Primary painting, looking down at window replacement for, I think that's Medina, excuse me, and the water waste treatment, which has been a huge issue that needs to be resolved this summer. Stanton River, that serves both Stanton River High School and middle school, and also the HVAC replacement at Stewartsville. So you should, if you have students at these campuses, you should see some needed improvements when you come back in August, and we're very proud of what the maintenance group has done to this point. Tonight also, you will hear a math curriculum adoption presentation. I would like to thank Audrey Bowers, who is our supervisor of math and gifted, and our textbook committee in advance for their presentation tonight and their diligence as they worked through the identification of a K-12 math textbook adoption process. A lot of work went into that, a lot of issues as far as getting it out there for people to see with all the snow days and everything else that we were dealing with early on in this process, but their hard work and diligence should be noted tonight, and I think you'll enjoy that presentation. I would like to say to them, job well done. After tomorrow, we will have 5 weeks remaining in the 24-25 school year. Next week is our spring break, April 14th to 18th, and I want to make sure that we appreciate everyone's hard work this year. I asked people to be safe and be rested over that time. And then I asked, even more importantly, that when we come back on April 21st, that we as students, parents, and school employees finish the school year very strong. Tonight, we're also going to highlight some students who have accomplished excellence in academics, athletics, and fine arts, and individuals in our community who have provided invaluable services through our community partnerships. Your contributions and hard work cannot go unnoticed. You make Bedford County Public Schools better for your contributions and your dedication. Congratulations to all of the participants that you will see here tonight. We are very proud of your accomplishments and contributions. This concludes the April Superintendent's Report. You will find this report in its whole on the web page, as we did last month, under the Leadership and Superintendent's link. And it's in our attempt to keep transparency alive, and so that when we have things that we discuss here, you can go find that on the web page. Thank you for your time.
Para? All right, Mr. Hagler, third quarter financial review.
Good evening. We're going to go over the third quarter projection for this year, trying to project out how we're going to end up for the end of the year. This was reviewed by the Finance Committee earlier this week on Monday. So they've been through this and asked a lot of questions, so I'll present it to the whole board in a high-level format here. Looking at our revenues, we're looking pretty strong here. And let me say it from the get-go, this forecast is based upon supplemental appropriations that have already been approved, some more that are coming, some transfers between major categories. In addition to, I forecasted based upon the General Assembly's current budget being passed. That went to the governor, went back to the General Assembly, it's gone back to the governor. So we're still in limbo on that. It may not be passed, but I assume that it's going to be passed, and I built that into this forecast. So as you can see from our revenue standpoint, projecting about $350,000 less than projected after all of those adjustments. One big adjustment on there in the General Assembly's budget for the current year is that there's money in the General Assembly's budget to pay out a $1,000 bonus to employees by June 1st. So we're waiting to see if it's going to be passed. With that, the amount of money we're going to receive, a little bit over $900,000 from the General Assembly, is not enough to fully fund all of our employees because we have more than the SOQ and positions that are out there. So there's about $550,000 needed local money. This forecast shows that that is available if the board would like to do that. Once again, that's pending the General Assembly's budget being passed by the governor. So we're in limbo on that. But I did build that revenue in, and I did build the expenditures in to provide for that on June 1st. So our revenues are looking pretty good, $350,000 projected under budget there. Be happy to answer any questions about the revenue before we go on to the expenditures. On the expenditure side, once again, projecting where we are based upon having 9 months of activity in. We're looking pretty good. It actually improved from the second quarter, mid-year, so I'm pleased with that. Some things that were looking favorable then, I can actually kind of bring in and project that we are going to finish better. When you look at the major categories there, the instructional category looks like it's coming in way under budget there. But we have some all-in money that the state had forwarded us last year that's still there. And down below, I'll speak to that in a minute. So that has to be really adjusted for money that is not going to be spent with the all-in money, but has to be spent that way. That money will roll over to the following year. So roughly about $2.7 million under budget there. But if you look down below, I'm taking out $1.8 million, which is the all-in that has not been spent. That will have to roll over to next year. So projecting an ending balance right around the $600,000 mark. That's after I've built in the $1,000 bonus and all the revenues and stuff. So we're looking in pretty good shape off a $123 million budget, about $600,000 projected. We still have 3 months to go and several payrolls to go through, but feeling very confident we can bring this budget in for this year. If you look at the supplementals, one thing that's going to be up later for the board to consider as information bringing back to the next meeting, I am looking to transfer about $400,000 into the maintenance category under the operating fund. higher than expected expenditures there, primarily in electrical. 225,000 of that is electrical coming in higher than anticipated. So we needed to shift some money in there. We had money in other categories to do that. So that will be later this evening, but that's one of the transfers we're considering. That's the operating budget, looking pretty good here. Be happy to answer any questions about the expenditure side on the operating fund before we turn to the other funds.
Questions? Appear to be no questions. Mr. Hagler?
Okay.
Budget update, can you do that in?
Well, I got a
you
couple
got
of
it.
our funds.
Okay, you're
yeah.
doing nutrition fund, my apologies, okay.
We've got a couple other funds that we need to brief on. Operating is the bulk of our budget. Nutrition. Nutrition has been running behind last year. It's also running a little bit behind this year. Hope it improves in the fourth quarter, but as you can see, net profit loss for the year, about $500,000 in the hole. We have been making changes, been briefing the Finance Committee on those changes to staffing, also into purchasing, trying to get this ship righted, but inflation has really caused havoc on this. So we're looking at everything we can to kind of make changes. Next year, we're already looking at 12 reduction in staffing on that, to trim staffing there to control the cost on that. So we're very, very hopeful that that will help. When we get to the budget, we are going to have to increase the purchase price of that for full pay. We'll brief you on that when we bring back the full budget, and we'll brief on nutrition on nutrition also. The textbook fund, you can see $2 million in reserve right there. You're going to have a presentation later tonight on the math adoption. So a lot of that money will go down once that math adoption has to be paid for, and they'll brief on that. I believe the estimation on the math adoption is around 1.4 million, so that will bring that balance way down. We'll have to build it back up for the next adoption. Maintenance reserve looking in good shape. You can see after all the, Mr. DePere was mentioning all the projects, I've reserved for those projects in that calculation. About 8 million sitting there, but we're already making designs and working with architect and engineer on HVAC renovation at both Liberty High School and St. River High School. The two of those will be about $10 million. So that 8 million plus what we put in there next year will go for those projects. So we've already got those earmarked for some projects in the future. Health insurance fund. This is where thank you. This is where we probably fell behind in the third quarter. At mid-year, we were at break even, but over the last 3 months, probably about $900,000 flowing out of the account, more than we brought in. So in speaking with the Finance Committee, when I propose a revised budget, when we get forward, once we have final numbers, we'll probably have to go up a little bit more on insurance than anticipated. So we'll present that to the full board. But we continue to see the insurance costs going up, and this account being hit pretty hard, but we got to make sure we have enough money going in there to self-fund ourselves going forward. So be happy to answer any questions you might have on all those funds. We're in good shape, but there's some things that we need to address.
I just want to make sure everybody saw the $525,000 loss in the nutrition fund. We cannot keep doing that. I mean, so we've got to figure out, you know, and you heard Mr. Hagler say we're going to have to go up in prices, but I'm going to say this, that at this time, that only impacts our forest families, and because of the grant that we're getting for the other two zones. But that is a concern to me, that we're taking a $500,000 loss, and it just keeps growing. And it's based on strings attached for the funding that we get, based on, it's both federal and state, correct, Mr. Hagler? Keep me
Yeah,
honest.
a little bit from state, mostly federal.
Mostly federal, but, you know, it almost makes you question, do we stop taking those funds to get rid of the red tape? And, you know, with the changes that are coming, maybe that helps it, but a $500,000 loss and growing, we cannot sustain that.
I will say, just for the forest families, it's, when we say we're going to go up on some of the prices, some of that is strings attached too. As explaining to the Finance Committee, they were surprised by that, but there's calculations and all these metrics that come in place. It's just phenomenal, all the things that we've got to check off to do when we receive these funds. And so it's not like the board wants to go up on those, but sometimes it's just calculations, part of the federal government saying this is how it runs, and you're mandated to do that. So we'll bring that calculation back to you when it's into the Finance Committee once we do those.
Any other questions? we've got 7 minutes. Do we want to get started on the budget update, stop, and then come back?
I think I can do the update because this is really for the board to consider. We're not really revising the budget tonight because we do not have final numbers, but this is a briefing on things that have changed that I know. So there's 4 changes that I could brief the board on, can kind of show what I project the bottom line, and then this document will show all of you, what you need to consider when we come back to revise the budget if these numbers hold. So, Mr. Chair, if you want me to do it, I can
Sir, go for it.
Okay. Looking at the document based upon the county budget, originally we were asking for quite a bit of increase there. We got some state increase if it gets passed, but the current county budget is supporting another $1 million to come into our operating fund. That's on top of the $500,000 they're putting aside for reversion in the maintenance reserve. So another $1 million coming into the operating fund. From the state, you can see that they have, $3.2 million coming in. There's a big part of that that's in question because it was a line item amendment by the governor to take a lot of that out. It's gone back to the governor, so we just don't know. So we're hopeful that that will come through. If those 2 numbers come through on the revenue side, there's 2 changes on the expenditure side. As I mentioned, the health insurance is getting hit harder than I thought. We were going to go up 7%. I recommended to the Finance Committee maybe going up 10% on that to kind of shore up that account. So you can see that $225,000 increase for that additional 3%. And then taking the third quarter where we're looking better than I thought, I went back and captured some more savings to balance this budget. Some of that savings came in off the fuel bid that we approved earlier this week. And so about $200,000 there from that fuel bid, and then another $200,000+ from other things that are coming in more favorable. So I built it into the budget to help balance this budget. Bottom line, if you look at the red number near the bottom, deficit of almost $1.4 million between revenues and expenditures that we're going to have to balance this budget. That means expenditure cuts. That's if everything, the county finalizes their budget with $1 million and the state finalizes their budget with that $3.2 million. That being said, the items in blue were things that we really wanted to do that we built into the original budget, the things you see at the bottom. Those things are going to have to be considered if we have no more revenue coming in and we're still at a $1.4 million deficit here. Also on the bottom of the sheet were other items that were not built into the budget, but the Finance Committee wanted us to just show some numbers, not that we want to do these or we're going to do these, of other cuts that could be made to balance the budget. So between the blue and those things down below, those are going to have to be considered in balancing the budget once we have the final numbers. So the Finance Committee wanted me to brief the full board on this so everybody could be thinking about that, and then we'll call either a special called meeting as soon as we can once budgets are finalized, both from the county and the state. That was brief, but I don't know if the Finance Committee wants to add anything to that or if you have any questions.
I want to make sure, so 1.399234 is the number we're looking at right now.
That's what I'm looking at right now based upon all those changes that I'm assuming are going to happen. Once again, nothing's final at this point.
And let's be very clear that these are options. These are not things that we're going to go do immediately or take action on.
Correct. Yeah.
They're options for this
I
board
mean, things
to
can be
consider.
swapped out, but all these, the things in the blue and the things on the bottom are the options that we've calculated. There might be other ones that the board members want us to look at, but these were the ones that we proposed in the first budget and the Finance Committee reviewed.
And from a scheduling standpoint, budget-wise, you need budget approved in May, is that right? If you get the signatures.
Yeah, we'd like to get contracts out in May. The governor has till May 2nd to make a decision, I believe. If he vetoes it, it goes back to the General Assembly. We're in no man's land then, and we're postponed. But I'm hopeful before May 2nd we can have that. And I believe the Finance Committee set up a May 6th date to come back to review a budget, and maybe on May 8th present it to the full board with a revised budget that we can finalize. So we're hopeful for that.
Any other questions for finance? All right, thank you, sir.
I just wanted to say about what was in blue and then the other possible reductions. It's been important for me, and I want to say for us as the Finance Committee, and I don't necessarily speak for the board, but I've spoken to each of you guys individually. We are all about transparency here. And it's important for us to not only just keep things between ourselves, but it's important for the public to understand the things that we're up against and the things that we're trying to accomplish, but also just to bring everybody in on the things that we see. These decisions don't happen, we don't make them in a bubble, but we want you guys to be able to see this stuff because it's important. You're a stakeholder, you should have a seat at the table, and it's important that you guys see what we are up against. So when we put things on there may be no chance that we're going to even come close to even considering it. However, as a community, you got to understand it's 500,000 here, $1 million there, 250 here. These are decisions that do have to be made, and we're elected to make those decisions. But it's important that everybody understands, again, what we're up against and what we're trying to accomplish, not just for this year, but for the future of Bedford County Public Schools, because that is important. I've been an advocate that we want to put the money into our people, into our students, and that is ultimately our goal, because that's how we can drive results. So I think that's going to be important in my decision-making as what I'm looking to do and the suggestions that I'm going to take and what I'm going to have to be able to explain. But that's what each one of us need to go through, is trying to make the best decision we can with what we have. As a school board, as a school division, we are a net receiver. We don't gain any more funds. It's not a money tree out back. We get money from the county, we get money from the state, we get money from the feds, and we got to figure out. And I want to give kudos right before it's 6 o'clock to Mr. Hagler and his team for all their hard work. The finance committee, all of the executives, we work really, really hard to try to get this information. We share the information, and everybody up here, I mean, hems and haws about, man, is this the right thing to do or not? But kudos to them, because you give us all the information that we need to make the most informed decision, and it's our goal is to share all of that with the community so they see exactly what's going on. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Eanes?
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, and Mr. Dupere, will you please come forward to greet our students and staff? It's been a few months, thanks to Mother Nature, since we've been able to recognize our students and staff for their wonderful achievements over the past few months. Students and staff, please pause after your group's recognition on stage so that we can get a photo with our board members. But we have a wide variety tonight of accomplishments, so let's get started. Our first recognition of the evening is for being an outstanding speller. Recently, we had students from all elementary and middle schools compete in the division-wide spelling bee. It was a tough 20 rounds, but the incredible spellers showcased their hard work and vocabulary skills. Taxonomic was the final word to end the competition. Tonight we have Mr. Liam Bartell from Stanton River Middle School, who impressively secured second place and serves as the alternate. So please join me in congratulating him for his accomplishment. Next, we have a winner from the Central Virginia Regional Science Fair. Miss Ella Wynn from Jefferson Forest High School attends the Central Virginia Governor's School, and she recently competed in the category Environmental Science. She won first place with her project that focused on discovering methods for polluted water remediation in local areas such as the James River. She was also awarded second place for the Stockholm Junior Water Prize. Because of these fantastic accomplishments, she moved on to the state competition and was invited to apply for the Stockholm Water State Competition. Please welcome Ella to the stage. Congratulations. All right, now the groups get a little bigger. Our next group of students are no stranger to this stage or being recognized for their amazing contributions to Bedford County. Here tonight we have the JROTC Air Rifle Team to celebrate their many accomplishments this year, and I'm sure there are more than I'm going to be naming tonight. First and foremost, this is the highest ranking JROTC Air Rifle Team in the state of Virginia for the second year in a row. Wait. They recently placed 10th in the U.S. Army Cadet Command's 4th Brigade Best of the Best air rifle match. There were 59 teams from 4 states competed for a spot, and this team was one of the top 22, and they traveled to Hickory, North Carolina to compete. Based on their performance at the 2024 Civilian Marksmanship Program postal match, the team secured a slot to compete in the Service Championship at Camp Ferry, Ohio. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the JROTC Air Rifle Team. Congratulations. All right, tonight is full of recognition at a high level of competition, and the next team dove right in. The Jefferson Forest High School swim and dive team made waves at the recent 4A state championship. I'm going to call each swimmer up by name and state their accomplishment. First, we have Ann Margaret Holt, who was the state champion in the 500 free and runner-up in the 200 free. We also have Max Schoenfelder, who was state runner-up in the 100 breaststroke. Hudson Rice was state runner-up in the 100 fly and the 500 free. And we have Noah Casper, who will join his teammates on stage as they celebrate the JF boys achieving state runner-up overall, as well as state runner-up in the 400 free relay. All right, thank you. And that's their great coach who came in after I already started talking. Keeping the Jefferson Forest celebrations going, we have another group of students who are not afraid to be in the spotlight. We have many members of Cavalier Theater here tonight to celebrate, so I will tell you all the great things they've been up to, and then we can get them on stage. It's been a while since the improv team won their title of state champions, but they did it for the 4th time in the last 6 years. In addition to the improv team's success, A Midsummer Night's Dream was one act play Region 40 runner-up, 40 South runner-up, and also placed 4th in the state. We have Chris Kolb, Chase Spence, and Lane Tankersley were named to the All-Star cast, and Lane Tankersley was named 4D South Outstanding Actress. JF's team won 2nd in the state in the return of the show tune lip sync battle, and special judges recognition for best costumes, best ensemble, best use of puppets. Congratulations to you all and the directors, Spence and Nikki White, and Miss White is also our Bedford County Teacher of the Year. It might get a little tight up there, but.
Job.
We've celebrated a variety of accomplishments so far, and now we're going to add Liberty High School's Scholastic Bowl team to the list. Not only did they take home Region 2 championship, but they also went into the state championship and snagged runners-up. So congratulations to the following members of the LHS Scholastic Bowl: Joseph Fitzgerald, Robert Baker, Jake Warner, Billy Coughlin, Victoria Coles, Alex Brown, Hayon Kim, and their coach.
Super Bowl.
Thank you. Congratulations. While our students have certainly showed off here tonight, we can't leave here without recognizing some great things our staff is doing as well. On December 4th, 2024, Jefferson Forest High School became the first school in Bedford County to earn a designation of a heart-safe school through Project Adam and the Children's Hospital of Richmond at VCU. As many of you may remember, in March of 2022, staff members at JF responded to a medical emergency and saved the life of an employee when they implemented life-saving efforts, including CPR in the school's AED. After this, Jefferson Forest began the process to become heart-safe to ensure that their staff and students were safe and had the necessary resources and proper training in the case of an emergency. Under the leadership of their nurse, Ms. Jenny Davis, and the support of Principal Dr. Ben Martin and the entire administrative team, the school met all 14 standards set by Project Adam to become a heart-safe school. We are proud of the efforts of the Jefferson Forest High School CERT team and the entire staff for their dedication to this cause. So please join me in thanking the following members of this team: Ms. Jenny Davis, Dr. Ben Martin, Ms. Caitlin Wood, Ms. Kim Morris, Mr. Ryan White, and Ms. Kelly Thomas, who's our Supervisor of Health Services. All right, we have one more. And then we can't brush past the amazing work of the last group of community professionals who provided a service to our elementary school community this year. Dr. Lee and her team with Johnson Health Center's mobile dentist spent 34 days among our 13 elementary schools serving over 380 students. With parent consent, participating students received preventative dental exams that may have included teeth cleaning, fluoride varnish, x-rays, sealants, and application of silver diamond fluoride, which prevents, slows, or stops tooth decay. If students needed further treatment, Johnson Health Center provided families with referrals. This group of professionals, including our school nurses, Mrs. Thomas, and others, coordinated these days to seamlessly accommodate dental appointments without disrupting the school day. So I'm going to introduce you to the following individuals. If you guys want to start making your way up. We've got Dr. Jana Laverdier, Dr. Paige Lee, Hannah Ng, Tabitha Gaddy, Janelle Brown, LaKendra Nowlin, and Miss Kelly Thomas. Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, this concludes recognitions.
It's always good to recognize the good things that are going on in Bedford County, and I'll echo, and I'm sorry I missed her name, but she just walked through and she's like, I'm from here, and I'm glad to be back here serving in this community. That says a lot. So congratulations to all who were just recognized. All right. Next is 4.01. I'm sorry, that's not correct. We're going to public comment. Give me a second here. All right. Public comment portion of tonight's agenda is limited to 40 minutes. Speakers are asked to state their name and voting district. The school board is here to listen to your comments, but will not engage or respond to speakers during this 40-minute period. Please remember that this is a public meeting and that we expect all speakers to refrain from any foul, profane, abusive, or hateful language during their comments or any time while in attendance during this meeting. We also ask that speakers keep their remarks objective and about the school in nature. Please keep all comments limited to matters related to the public schools, and any comments that are harassing or amount to a personal attack against any identifiable individual, whether board member or staff or student, or having the potential to cause unnecessary delay or disruption to this meeting are prohibited. This is a public meeting for public matters. If a speaker is not present when their name is called, we will proceed with the next name on the list. An individual who has not signed up to speak may not substitute for that time slot. Individuals will have 4 minutes to address the board. An alarm will sound when an individual has 30 seconds remaining, and a second alarm will sound when the allotted 4 minutes have expired. When the second alarm sounds, please discontinue speaking and allow the next person in line to come to the podium. Should you be unable to finish your comments, please send or give them to Ms. Johnson, and she will give them to board members. Please do not adjust the microphone at the podium, as it has been positioned for optimum audio quality. We do not have anyone signed up to speak tonight. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to speak? All right. Yes, ma'am. You need to.
We have some recognitions that came that we weren't prepared for, but we would like to recognize them if they're here. Okay.
All right,
So
I'm going to close tonight's public comment time since there's no one here to speak. And then we're going to go back to recognition to absolutely recognize a group that is here. So, Ms. Seams.
And I apologize, but we have two very important gentlemen that are here tonight with Jefferson Forest High School Wrestling. So we're going to continue our JF celebrations here. We have DJ Trent, who is the state champ at 175, and we have Luke Worth, who is state runner-up for 150. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'll get him to sign.
Recognitions and public comment. Staff reports and informational items not addressed at 5 o'clock session. So we're going to go back to 4.01, which is the math textbook adoption. I want to make sure I call this out because some may see that this is on the agenda as information, but later tonight we're also going to be taking action on this, and that is based on feedback from CPO and the fact of overwhelming response, positive response from the community in the textbooks and moving forward with that. So wanted to make sure that was clear that we are doing information and action tonight. So I will turn that over to Dr. Sean Trosper and Ms. Audrey Boyer.
Good evening. Ms. Boyer and I this evening will be presenting information, as you said, and an action item after an overview of the math textbook adoption process that took place throughout this school year. and then we will be making a recommendation for what textbooks we want to adopt. We plan to use these textbooks for the upcoming school year. Before we start, I would like to recognize those that served on the math textbook committee and thank them for their time and for their contributions. And I also want to thank Ms. Bowyer for her leadership. She's provided outstanding leadership throughout the process, and I appreciate her hard work and the members of the committee. When we did form the committee, it was important to have representation from all three zones, to have elementary and secondary, to have representatives from special education, gifted, as well as instructional technology coaches. So all of those were represented on this committee. We did form it in November of 2024. We selected them based on their expressed interest in being on the committee. They met with textbook vendors, they listened to virtual presentations, reviewed samples of materials, discussed the teacher survey data, which we'll share later. All of that was factored into the recommendations that we're going to make tonight. The recommendations we are presenting are a result of the work that really started in August. I just want to give you a quick overview of what that looked like so you understand how we got to this place. First of all, the DOE gave us an approved textbook list in February and in March of this year. We went ahead and convened a committee in November because we wanted to get ahead of the process. So we essentially started reviewing books that we anticipated would be on the list. And so anything we did not expect, we did add later, but really the way we expected it to turn out, it did. We reviewed virtual presentations from each company in November. At this time, the committees engaged with representatives about what the product offered. They had the ability to ask questions. Then in January, and even up until very recently, samples were sent to schools. So the companies sent samples for all the resources being considered. They were also available at the school admin office. We encouraged not only our teachers and our staff, but also our families to go to one of their local schools if they would like to review these materials. Then we had a sample review feedback in February 26th to the 28th. And so the community was invited to come in and look at text samples. We didn't quite get the participation we looked for, so we actually extended that process for 2 weeks. We ended up getting a great deal of participation. And again, we'll share that, but we're very pleased with the amount of people that did participate. And then on March the 18th, we reconvened the math textbook committee. We reviewed the feedback from our community, from our teachers. We made the final recommendation, and then that recommendation was presented to the CPO committee on March the 25th. At that point, select members of the committee, Ms. Bowyer, myself, made those recommendations. So Ms. Bowyer is going to go over what the feedback looked like and then some of the rationale behind our recommendations.
All right, so the first feedback that you see in front of you is we did an initial teacher survey in October and November where we just engaged teachers in asking what were the 5 or most important features that they wanted to see in a new curriculum and a new textbook. So according to our survey, the top 5 most important features to teachers were clear alignment to our Virginia SOLs and our standards. Number 2, the ease of use for students and for staff. 3, the inclusion of print resources. Number 4, supports for intervention, remediation, differentiated instruction. And then lastly, but certainly not least, they also wanted to see an inclusion of some digital resources and detailed lesson plans. We had 109 responses on that initial survey, and just so that you are aware, we have approximately 208 teachers that are teaching mathematics in the division, so at least almost a 50% response. On the second slide of feedback that you see in front of you, this was after we reviewed all of the samples. So like Dr. Trosper said, we sent samples to all community schools and had them at the school board office. It was very important to us that even though we were running 3 community days, where we stayed after hours so parents could leave their job and still be there at 6, 7 o'clock and kind of still review those resources. It was also important to us that if they couldn't make it to a central location in the middle of Bedford, that they also have the opportunity to review those resources at their local school that was near their home. So all samples were sent to all 19 schools that we have. The response that you see in front of you is the teacher feedback. That's what you're seeing on the graphs. We ran this for the entire month of February, and initially we only had 28 teacher responses and 1 community parent response, which we did not feel was enough engagement in the process. So we asked the CPO committee if we could extend it by 2 weeks, and we would like to publicly say thank you to the CPO committee for allowing us to extend it for 2 weeks. The 2 weeks in March, we garnered much more participation from our teachers. So we were able to get 118 responses, which is almost about a 57% response on feedback of the samples. We still had low parent and community involvement, but we did get 2 parent responses and 3 community member responses. I listed in front of you on the graphs what was considered the first choice for the community or for the teachers and what was listed for the second choice. Like I said, the graphs represent the teachers' wants and desires. The 2 parent and 3 community members, I will say that their feedback does follow suit with what the choices were of the teachers. So for first choice for elementary, you can see that we had almost a 57% first choice of Kidham, Virginia math. And then in middle school 6-8, there was almost a 91% choice for math space. And then in the high school, I would like for you to notice that the first choice was actually tied between 2 options. So when the committee met back together, we discussed the fact that there was a tie. We looked at the number of responses. There were actually only 6 responses in the high school feedback from actual high school teachers. The rest of the feedback was from middle school teachers who teach high school courses at the middle school level. So what we asked is on our textbook committee, we had a representative from all 3 high schools. And so when we looked at that, we asked those 3 committee members to go back to their high school teacher staffs and just poll them, get them to dig a little bit more deeper into the samples, and at our textbook committee, we asked them to bring their results back from that. So while it's not represented here in this graph, what we found when we did that is some high schools, they could go either way and they weren't quite sure which way to go. Others typically looked at the alignment, and what they found is the 2 choices that they narrowed it down to were math space and McGraw-Hill's Reveal Mathematics. And what they determined in alignment is the higher that you got in the course. So for instance, Algebra 2, in Reveal Mathematics, the less aligned it was. So for that reason, and for the fact that we really wanted to make sure that we had some consistency between our secondary schools and middle school and high school, we are actually going to be recommending something similar for both middle school and secondary. The other thing the textbook committee looked at was the alignment to the Virginia standards. Remember that this was number 1 on our teachers' list of important factors when choosing a textbook. The chart that's in front of you was taken from our consortium CIP that we are members of. The data that is represented here actually comes from the Virginia Department of Education's alignment documents that they produced after they did their textbook review at the state level. And so when they were looking at alignment of standards for the Virginia Department of Education, they ranked every standard that we have in mathematics 3 ways. They either said it was adequately met, it was limited, or there was no evidence that it was in the curriculum at all. So CIP decided to give each one of those ranks a numerical value. So if it was adequate and it was met, we gave it 2 points. If it was limited, per se, it was there, but it might have been in a different grade level, so it didn't quite line up with the way the state standards flow. We gave it a 1. And if there was no evidence that the material was there according to the alignment documents, we gave it a 0. And as you can see, these are all of the approved list of textbooks that came from the Department of Education. And you can see that 2 stand out as all green across the board. So for those reasons, the committee would like to put forth a recommendation that for K-5, we recommend Virginia Math powered by Kidham. And for 6 through Algebra 2, we recommend MathSpace Virginia. Both of these companies are companies that were not national companies that started with national books and just put in sections that say Virginia, which is currently what we have. These are both companies that built their curriculum and their textbooks from our standards from the ground up. And we thought that that was very important. I would like to call your attention to the next couple of slides. The textbook committee put together a lot of effort in looking at pros and cons of each one of our recommendations. No textbook committee or textbook company curriculum is ever going to be 100% perfect in everything they do, and the textbook committee took that to heart, and they wanted to know if there were cons, how would we address them? And so on the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about that. So for the K-5 curriculum, some of the pros are the alignment to Virginia standards, the print and digital resources. KIDM has actually, this company and our sales rep has actually promised to print and provide digital resources that align not only with our state standards, but in the order that we teach it in. This was highly recommended by our teachers. They would like the fact that the book print and the digital resources that they have would go and flow in the order that we teach it in, and not just be, we're going to work on chapter 1 now and then chapter 12 and then come back to chapter 3. They didn't want to do all of that. KIDM also provides hands-on conceptual learning experiences. All of the activities involve some sort of manipulative or conceptual understanding of the process. There was a consumable layout, which means that each student would have a book where they could write responses, and there was lots of room for students to write and explain their thinking and justify their mathematics and not just do rote memorization of numbers. There was also prepared slide decks already created for teachers, and they are editable, which means a teacher can add in things that she needs to in order to meet the needs of the students in her classroom. There is also a piece of adaptive planning for pacing changes inside of KIDM. For example, if we are on a 2-hour delay, the teacher can go into this adaptive planning feature and they can say we are cut on our math block is now 30 minutes instead of 60, and the system will spit out a new lesson plan with the most vital pieces so that the teacher can continue teaching in the time frame that she has. Some of the cons with KIDM K-5 was we felt like it lacked a little bit of pre-planned independent practice. The company has stated that there is digital practice there and it's adaptive, but we were looking for something that wasn't just online, and so we would like to say that our plan for this is to create some sort of process so that teachers can submit resources that they already have that are vetted, that are not copyrighted material, that we can share out across the board, that we know are working, and also utilize some of the products that we already have without purchasing something else. So for example, we already have IXL, which provides an adaptive practice already. One of the other cons is the amount of classroom space to store unit consumables. These consumables that will be printed and provided to the schools each year are printed in units, so it's 1 unit at a time. So when the school year starts, the teacher's going to have all the units for all the kids in her room. So we do realize that teachers and administrators will have to figure out where to store that until teachers are ready to use the materials. One of the things that we did want to highlight was Math 4 missing lessons. So I'm going to take you back to the alignment chart for just a second. If you look at KIDM Math, you can see that it's not 100% aligned to the Virginia standards. It is the one that is most aligned with the Virginia standards, but we did notice that there were some gaps where we found some standards that were limited or no evidence, and that is most noticeable in 4th grade. So the division's plan for this is to write supplemental lessons over the summer so that when the teachers roll in August, that those lessons are ready and prepared for them. I've actually already began that work, and I've already completed supplemental lessons for K1 and 2. All right, and so those were our pros and cons on KIDM. Some of the discussion that we just talked about was there. One thing that we did want to note is based on feedback from the teachers that filled out the survey, We left a box for them to write comments, and also based on the textbook committee feedback. So we had 2 kindergarten teachers on the committee. One thing that they noted with KIDM is in the consumable, there are giant boxes for students to write and explain thinking. And when you think developmentally about a kindergartner who's 5 years old, who's coming in to learn letters, they're not necessarily forming giant sentences where they can explain their thinking. So it was actually a recommendation on a couple of members who filled out the textbook survey. Some of those teachers recommended that they would like the option to just print the resources as they needed rather than buy and purchase the consumable that a student may not write in. And so when we did our quotes and we are starting to negotiate, that is what we are recommending, is that we buy the consumables for grades 1 through 5 so that they can explain their thinking. But for kindergarten, we buy the digital, and we buy one of those consumables for the teacher to use and decide and print as needed. Because we really think it's important that, especially in that kindergarten aspect, that those students are using the manipulatives and they're learning that way rather than just writing. For math space for 612, if you go back to that alignment chart, you will see that is the only choice for on the VDOE approved list that was 100% without any holes aligned math 6 all the way to algebra 2. So the alignment to Virginia standards was the #1 pro for math space 612. It also provides hardback student editions and digital resources. It has higher ordered thinking questions, and inside the textbook itself, in every lesson, there is scaffolding present. So the first couple of questions hit the bare minimum, and then as you get further into the lesson, the harder the question and the more rigorous and the deeper understanding is there. There are problems that involve application and real-world use of the content. There is adaptive practice available based on students' needs, and it was easy to navigate for teachers and students. And in the digital component, all teachers would have access to all digital resources for all purchases that we make. So if a Algebra 1 teacher had a student in their room that was struggling with an 8th grade concept, they would be able to easily search that standard, find it in the 8th grade book, and assign a student a practice. Some of the cons is that slide decks were not there for the teachers. They weren't already created. I have been in talks with this company, and they are working on doing those. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Trosper, who's going to talk a little bit about implementation.
Yeah, upon adoption, we're going to be communicating our expectations to our teachers about how they're going to use the curriculum. I just wanted to share that with the board quickly. The committee understood that these would be the expectations in making the decisions, and again, the recommendations lined up with this. And so our expectations for math teachers will be that all math classrooms will use these resources as their first and primary resource when delivering Tier 1 instruction. That means all students will receive instruction using these materials. And so they will have some flexibility to provide supplemental and intervention resources where necessary. So we certainly respect them as professionals in doing so, but that is only after they have made full use of the curriculum before doing that. So that's going to be very important. We believe that's best for instruction, that's best for our kids. That improves the instructional practice across our division. So again, the first and primary resource will be these. The resources also align with our goals for math instruction in Bedford County, which is to see instruction focused on real-world application, to emphasize conceptual understanding, in other words, the reasoning, the rationale behind the math to help with deeper understanding, a process-oriented thinking, and then finally students just engaging in mathematical discourse, discussing through the process, again, which should lead to hopefully better, deeper understanding. So our next step is to ask our principals to fill out a manipulative inventory, and what that means is KIDM especially is very heavy on manipulatives, students using their hands, students interacting, more so than just rote memorization of problems. We think that's going to help us be more efficient with our resources, because we think a lot of these resources are already on campus, so we won't have to order those when it comes time to do that. So as I said, that we will bring this back this evening for action. So at this time, if the board has any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Questions?
Does KIDM that's for the elementary. Does that focus on times tables?
The fact fluency piece is in all of the curriculums. Obviously, we have that as part of our standards. So, for example, if you were to pull up the grade 3 standards of learning, the fact fluency and the automaticity of knowing your times tables is part of the standards. So anything that wouldn't be there as part of the activity that you would need to do, so for instance, flashcards or anything like that, those would be the supplemental resources that Dr. Trosper was mentioning that teachers would have to also be part of. There's also centers inside of KIDM, and some of those centers do focus on that fact fluency.
As far as the materials that are being ordered, using per units, et cetera, do we have a plan in place to make sure as that material comes in, we are making sure that our teachers are using it or going to use it instead of, I forgot it was over there, or it's stored in a closet somewhere and we find it. I just want to make sure there's a plan in place, because you mentioned storing it and using it during units, to make sure we have that plan in place to validate that we're using what we're ordering and paying for.
We had a principals meeting just this week, and the expectations I just outlined, that was explained to the principals, that would be our expectation. And so we directed them to start talking to their staff now that we expect these to be used when we go into classrooms. So as Ms. Bowyer and I go into classrooms observing, as principals are observing, they're expected to give feedback on that. Over the summer, we'll have our administrators conference. We'll dig deeper into how to use it and really help them understand what it looks like. And that is going to be a big part of our discussion is, are we using the materials with integrity?
Additionally, we have already earmarked with both companies, hopeful that it is approved tonight, and so that we can make sure that we provide training with them to the teachers. I think that training piece and the back to school will be important. The digital resources could be available as early as June 1st for both companies. The print resources they would be trained on as when they return to school.
Great. And then as far as the kindergarten, love the idea of waiting to print as needed. But there are times feedback of, well, we don't have ink, we don't have paper, the printer. How are we addressing those concerns to make sure that all of that is ready for kindergarten to be able to print on an as-needed basis?
Yeah, we'll make sure they know that if they need more resources, and they can reach out to our team or Mr. Hager, we'll make sure they have what they need. We don't think it's going to change much more than they already are, but we want to make sure we support them in that.
Most of the lessons are scripted for KIDM, and so that scripted activity piece would be something that the teacher could do verbally without having to print, but if they wanted to print something, then they would have the ability to do so. So we're not assuming that it would be a large amount of printing.
I heard positive reviews of the CPO and reviewing the book. I can't remember if it was you or Ms. Purvis that said it actually made you want to stay and do math. It was you. Okay. So that's great. That's what we want to hear. So kudos to you guys for bringing that to the team. Yes, sir.
How much does this curriculum still allow for the freedom of teachers to be able to use their skills that they've gathered?
I think the most important message we want our teachers to know is what was on those charts. I mean, when you use this curriculum, it is, in almost every case, fully aligned with our standards. So when you use it, you will find success. So what we have taught as the best practice for instruction is that every student should be exposed to high-quality instructional materials. And what happens is that mitigates the level of teacher in terms of if one teacher might be more effective than another teacher, at the end of the day, all kids, it raises the floor for all of them when they're exposed to this high quality curriculum. That's just best practice. Research shows that. If they feel like they need to go back and reteach or remediate, and in some cases like math grade 4, there's going to be a few areas that we'll need to supplement, then they'll have that freedom to do that. But quite honestly, the way that we've gone with the Virginia Literacy Act, there's an approved list that the state provides that they have to use. That there is laws right now that are waiting to be signed that essentially requires core curriculum to be adopted and used based on that approved list. So it's different than it has been. That's the trend of we need to know what's being taught in our classrooms. And again, There's many reasons for that, but from our perspective, that is best practice for instruction.
And we will also have that process where teachers will be able to submit supplemental resources that they have so that we can see. We want to be able to bring all three zones together in order to share resources. A lot of times we have great things happening in one building or with one teacher, and we want to make sure that we can replicate that everywhere. So we will be building that process to where they can share some of those supplemental resources amongst each other.
If I can just comment, that was one of the things that struck us as a big positive, and that is the ability for the teachers to collaborate across the school areas, all the school zones, as well as to be able to scaffold, as the terms are kind of foreign to me until you get into them, but the ability for them to start at that base level and take the excelling students higher and but make sure everybody's getting the basics. And Dr. Trosper, I wanted to see if you would just elaborate a little bit on the advantages of making this an action item tonight so that the board understands why we're doing that in terms of how it expedites getting the materials into the hands of the teachers, et cetera.
Absolutely, yeah. We really appreciate you bringing that for a vote, but if we're able to get that approved, we can quickly start to survey the principals on what manipulatives are in place so we know what to order. We can figure out what we want to order, and that puts us ahead of a lot of divisions. Even going back to when we formed the committee, we anticipated what would be on the list, and thankfully we were correct in a lot of it. If we can get those ordered, there's a good chance we can get those materials in, maybe not before the kids go home, but we can at least get access where teachers can start to look through their teachers' editions. They can start to look through online. So should they choose, they've got the summer to do that. It would be very frustrating as a teacher to come back to school in August and be given a new curriculum. We want to try to avoid that. So this helps us get that going and get that ordered and get our training set up, hopefully before a lot of other divisions do.
Additionally, both of these companies are Virginia specific, which means they are printing them on demand. They are digital companies that have changed into print materials because of a request. KIDM specifically will print the books in the order of our pacing guides and the order we teach it, which is going to take some time, so the earlier we can have the order to them, the faster we can get those materials printed and shipped.
And it also sounded like in the CIP group that the vast majority of all the school divisions are ordering these same materials, and so to get a jump on that will put us at the head of the line.
Our understanding is it's first come, first served, so whenever they get the order, that's when they print. So.
I had two questions. The first one, cost. Is there a significant difference between what you've chosen or what has been chosen and the other options?
I will be honest, once the committee narrowed it down, we did not go back to the companies, especially after the alignment came out to the other companies. They were not really in the green with the alignment, so we did not go back in full disclosure and ask for cost effectiveness for them. I will tell you, in our last adoption, it falls in line exactly at the same price. We're not seeing price point. We're not seeing a big jump or an increase. Some things that we have done to kind of mitigate the cost is the original quote from KIDM included all the manipulative kits. Looking at the list of manipulatives, I believe they exist in every building already, so why would we purchase them again? So things like that we are negotiating and taking out, but it does line up with most textbook adoptions that we've done in past years.
And my second question, and this may have been discussed, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but is this a contract that you sign with this group for X number of years? So, we're talking about how it's aligned with the SOL, but we also know that SOL changes, right? So what happens with that?
Typically, and we're in unusual times, but typically every 7 years, the state adopts new standards, and then immediately after they pass the standards, they have a list of approved text. This will be a 7-year contract, so that price that we get will get consumables delivered every year. as part of that contract. So it's not always a perfect 7-year, but we do the best we can. And so that's, hopefully, but once we order that, it will get us everything we need for 7 years. And we can always extend it if we need to.
And is it the same, you're getting the same thing over and over again for 7 years, or some of the things reusable? I would think some of it is reusable, right?
The digital access would be 7 years worth of digital access. For math space for the 612, that's a hard book textbook, so we would get those shipped in the beginning. We wouldn't get an additional shipment. We could additionally get teachers' editions as needed, like if they go missing or things like that. We can always supplement and add that. For KIDM, those are consumables, so the way that works is you sign the 7-year contract, but you are only shipped the materials you need for that 1 year. And then you pay up front. So we've already paid for the full 7 years, and then each additional year after that first year, you're given your year's worth of materials.
And this is a new SOL year. This is a new Virginia's adoption for SOLs in math, so
This is year 1.
starting off.
All right. Thank you so much. And Dr. Trosper, thank you for entertaining and letting me go to 8.02 and skipping over 8.01, the Perkins grant.
Okay. Yeah, so the Perkins grant is, we send a memo between the last, or after the last board meeting. Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
okay.
Let me go back. You're good. We'll come back to the action items. I had actually looked at the math, so my apologies. That's an action items. Budget transfers, Mr. Hagler.
Yes. As I went over my third quarter forecast earlier, I mentioned both of these. The first is the category transfer is to move money into the maintenance category and the operating fund from 3 different areas. The Finance Committee has asked me to look into maybe not moving everything out of the transportation, maybe looking at buses and kind of utilizing that as we've moved out of the lease purchase and we're purchasing to kind of keep our fleet updated. So this might change by the next time, but it's for informational purposes to move money to make the maintenance category whole. And that was the first one. Are these 2 separate items on the agenda?
Budget transfers and supplemental appropriations.
So I don't know if you need to vote on that one, and I'll go to the next one. Up to you.
This is for informational.
Sorry. Apologize. Get ahead of myself.
That's what happened to me. I went ahead. Sorry,
Okay. The second one, as I mentioned in the report, this $905,000 would be a supplemental appropriation if the current budget for this year is amended, as the General Assembly said. If we get to the next meeting and it's dead, then this will get pulled and it won't be voted on. But this is assuming that the General Assembly finally gets approved by the governor, we move forward, and this amount specifically is for a $1,000 bonus for employees, payable by June 1st.
Questions? All right, policy updates, Mr. DePere.
Excuse me. The Intergovernmental Affairs Committee met on March 10th, 2025 to review proposed revisions to the following policy: GCBDC sick leave donation. Proposed edits include addition to requirements for an employee to be a VRS Plan 1-2 employee to receive sick leave donation, and an employee who is a member of the sick leave bank may use either the sick leave bank or the sick leave donation plan within the same year, but not both. This will be brought up for vote next month.
Questions on policy updates? All right, Dr. Trosper, my apologies. We're at 8.01. Perkins grant. What's that?
Some musical chairs.
Yeah.
Right. I'll be joined by Mr. Haas as well. So we did send a memo on March the 19th, just explaining an overview of the Perkins grant. And the reason we did a memo and did not do traditionally an information in the next month, because the information for the grant was not available by the last board meeting. And so we wanted to make sure you had that information to vote on tonight. So After reviewing that, is there any questions from the board before you vote for action?
Do I have a motion to approve 8.01 Perkins Grant? Have a motion by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Perkins Grant is approved. 8.02 Math Textbook Adoption. Do I have a motion to approve as what was just presented by Dr. Trosper and Mrs. Boyer? All right, I have one by Dr. Hubach. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holbrook. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Math textbook adoption is approved. And 8.03, approval of 2025-26 special education plan and funding applications. Ms. Jennings, any updates or anything you want to tell us before we?
Nothing has changed, and I'm just here if you guys have any questions.
Do I have a motion to approve 8.03?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hill. Any questions for Ms. Jennings? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the 25-26 special education plan and funding applications are approved. All right, do I have a motion to go back into closed session?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A13. One, for the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific employees of Bedford County Public Schools. And three, for the discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body.
Have a motion by Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Holbrook. Any discussion? All those in favor of going back into closed session, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're in closed session. Come out of closed session.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Daniels. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Holbrook, or excuse me, Dr.
Sorry, Dr. Holbrook.
Hubach. Sorry about that. All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Johnson, if you will certify a closed meeting.
Whereas the Bedford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the Bedford County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Yes.
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 All right. Do I have a motion to, for the approval of the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. S. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. All right, matters from the board, committee reports. Let's start with you, Dr. Hubach.
Right. Well, the CPO met and we moved forward with the math curriculum, which has been approved tonight. So I just wanted to thank Dr. Trosper and Audrey Bowyer and the entire committee for what they did. And it was a lot of hard work, a lot of hours. And thank you guys for taking action tonight on that so that we can get that curriculum in the hands of our teachers and get them prepared. And we know that when there's a new adoption with SOLs, that scores tend to drop, and getting that in their hands early, I think, will hopefully make a difference in keeping that up. So that's all I've got. I know the Family Life Curriculum Committee met, and they've moved forward with moving some of the elementary school curriculum forward, which we have not had in the past, which is a big difference from all the surrounding counties. And it's a gap in our education, so something that we'll be addressing hopefully starting next year.
Trio?
Yeah, we had the PPA committee. We broke ground on the Bedford Primary Gymnasium. We're next going to be, they're starting on ENS measures, starting to mitigate some of the dirt out there and start getting it ready for actual construction. We also have the Liberty High School and Stanton Rivers High School project coming up this summer. We've been continually getting favorable bids, so we're etching down on that price a little bit, and everything seems to still be on schedule to finalize those bids in the next little bit. We're about 50% finalized on those bids there. I've also got CTE. We got 2 reverse career fairs coming up. On April 30th, we got a reverse career fair for Liberty High School. I think there's a lot of good attention there. And on May 2nd, there's a reverse career fair at Stanton River. And both of those reverse career fairs are where the students will be presenting to employers, giving presentations about, why they should be hired, and the employers get to actually walk around to see the booths of each student. So I think it's a novel idea, and I think we're really excited about that.
Mr. Holbrook?
We have not had a facility meeting since the last meeting, March 10th, and that was just the lighting bids approval. And we don't have one scheduled as of now. And he covered the PPEA and the CTE, so that's all I got.
No recent meetings.
Finance, but IGA, we met and presented the policy that you guys saw here tonight. We have another one on April 29th. That's it.
All right. We did have a Finance Committee meeting this past Monday. Mr. Hagler covered a lot of what we talked about on tonight's report. Talked about the third quarter forecast, operating revenues, et cetera, that we talked about tonight, the supplemental appropriations. Mr. Hagler presented a supplemental appropriation of $905,926 for the employee bonus, which he also brought up tonight. Budget category transfer, again, the $400,000 to the maintenance fund, we discussed that. And then pending the governor signing the state amended budget, talked about the 26 budget update, state revenue, what we're getting from the Board of Supervisors, and then potential adjustments based on third quarter forecasts. And we talked about that again tonight, but just to encourage, be thinking about where do we want to cut? I mean, we're going to have to cut somewhere. So you had those options presented again tonight. Do we go from 4% to 3%? Where, we've got to do the 3% because that's what's passed down from the governor. But we were talking about doing an additional 1% increase cost of living. But, that's one of the options that we talked about in Finance Committee. But definitely look at your options and, try to have that ready for May, because that's going to be coming to us quick and we're going to need to be making those decisions. Also had a SEAC meeting last night. I was in attendance. One of the things that SEAC talked about, there are some events that are happening in May, sort of like an end of year event. They're trying to schedule that. And then they are going to schedule something with the new playground, which is for the SPED community in Bedford on Falling Creek toward August, September timeframe. Really want to do it the week before school starts to try to get parents out and get some information. So be on the lookout for that. So both May and August timeframe. The other thing that I wanted to mention for SEAC, we're looking for partners, and they didn't ask me to do this. This is Marcus mentioning it because we talked about summer opportunities. So if you have a business or if you are a church with camps or properties to offer where you have plans, SEAC is looking for opportunities for our kids for this summer to be able to have something to do while they're out. So if you have something that you have in mind, please reach out to myself or Kelly Jennings, and we can put you in contact with that committee. But they're definitely looking for some summer camps and looking for partners for that. So, okay, that is all for my committee. We'll go back to school board member comments. Mr. Knight, you want to go first on that one?
Sure. I think many people that are here or watching on YouTube probably heard about the little girl in the area that recently passed away due to suicide. She was 10, I believe, maybe 11. Autumn Bushman is her name. So first, I would just like to publicly offer sincere condolences to her family. I know, I really can't even express the grief that I'm sure they're facing. But the father of the little girl is on a mission to do what he can in her honor to stop bullying. This little girl had been bullied, and I think was obviously affected by it in a way that led to, the unthinkable. I think that people have talked about bullying for a long time, and there's policies in place, at schools, and I think schools are trying to do their best with the situation, but ultimately it comes down to, parents, other students, people being kind, and teaching our children, teaching the people around us to be kind. Much of bullying is not physical, it's often verbal, in particular these days with social media, with the internet, and the ability for multiple children to gang up on another child through social media is just, it's horrific. And, I think that it should be all of our mission to do whatever we can do to stop this, because it's potentially the saddest thing, I think, that's happening in our culture today. I've seen recent numbers that show childhood suicide has skyrocketed, and I don't remember as a child ever hearing about that sort of thing. And I'm sure it happened, but not like today. And, I know for me as a parent, it's my responsibility to teach my children to stand up for other children, not to bully them. And if they see others ganging up, be the voice that stands up for the vulnerable and the weak. And again, my wife and I have thought a lot about this and talked a lot about it. And, we've seen it personally. We've experienced, various things throughout the course of our children's lives where they were hurt, and, people take advantage of that. And we as parents just have to stand up, and I know the school's working hard on it. I know that Bedford County has policies in place, but a lot of this happens after school. And so I challenge everyone to support the Bushman family and their push to stop bullying in the name of their sweet daughter that they lost.
Normally, I would say no comment, but I would like to add to what he said. It really mainly is up to the peers and the students and the kids, more so than anybody else, because it's not cool to be a bully. It's not, no matter what you might think or how it's portrayed, I guess. If you see something happen, stand up. Say something, that's the first line of defense. By the time it makes it to a teacher or an adult or whatever, the damage is done, and it does boil down to being kind, to just being kind, treat others as you would want to be treated, basically, is what it is. But I'd just like to add that to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo what these guys said, absolutely, about, bullying in school and how important it is that we address it now. I had a chance this last couple of weeks to meet with Dr. Trosper and Dr. Haas about CTE and how important that is to our community and our students. I also work in the construction trades, and so there's a disconnect right now. In trades, we are always complaining about not enough people to help. And with CTE, one of their things is trying to get community members involved. So it's something I would really like us to engage with, and I think it comes a lot from the construction community, being able to reach out to these students and get them trained up to where we can implement them in our workforce quickly. And so I'd like to really focus on that going forward with Dr. Trosper and Dr. Haas.
Dr. Cubot?
Yeah, it's hard to follow those kinds of comments. It's very sobering about a young child taking their own life. Nothing else really seems to make a whole lot of important impact. I did have some comments that I wanted to make regarding nutrition and how, one of our main goals here is educating the kids so that they are prepared for life. And nutrition's a big part of that. It's a big part of their ability to cognate and to learn new things, to process, and And it also is a financial issue for us, as we talked about earlier tonight, how we're losing money, and the nutritional plight of our students is not good. We see childhood obesity continuing to rise, so that it is well over 30% of all of our kids, and probably more than that. It's approaching 50. And yet we throw away so much good food in the cafeterias, and there just has to be a way for us to address the waste, the financial loss, and to improve the nutrition. And I want to explore the options that we have, both in the Finance Committee and in our Policy Committee, and within the confines of what the laws will allow, so that we can improve those things. So I implore everybody to think along those lines and to work with us so that we can make an impact for the community in that respect.
Yeah. Just my heart breaks for that family. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I just cannot imagine it. So just want to offer prayers to the family, and anyone else in the community that if you have a child that's maybe acting out at home or something may be bothering them, I just ask that you just talk to them and just say what's going on, just with a kind heart, and just listen. I think that's the most important thing that we can do for our kids, is just listen. They might not be able to express how they're feeling, but I think that it is important that we do, and be able to recognize that. And as a parent, I think it's really difficult to maybe sometimes feel like you don't have all the answers for your child, but there are resources out there. There are people that have gone through this, and there's people out there that can certainly help. I know for one, as a parent, you think I have 5 kids. You want to think that it's one size fits all, but it's certainly not. So if you struggle, even as a parent, and you don't know what to do, reach out, because that's like we'd have a child reach out and see if there's something we can do, because it could make all the difference. I don't know how to transition necessarily from that, but we talked about the budget a lot tonight, and I know that in finance, when we found out that hey, we're looking here, we're going to have a shortfall, and there's some things that we all as board members are going to need to consider, and that's tough. That's always tough. I mean, I don't think any of us really want to be in that position where we have to tell, hey, we're going to have to make some changes here. It's important. That's what we are. It's part of what we are elected to do. I will say that this goes in life. Actions have consequences, but also inaction also has consequences. Last year we were presented with some options, and I don't want to say they were perfect options, but there were some options that were out there that we could have saved anywhere from $800,000 to $1.2 million a year, every year. Now we are short this year $1.4 million. And we've done some tightening. I mean, Mr. Hagler is a wizard at some of the things that we're able to do, and the things that they present, and the executive staff of doing more with less when it comes to a lot of things that we do. We have to always evaluate what is the best thing for, again, the students and the staff here at Bedford County Public Schools, and how do we get the most out of what we're given, and how do we get the best results? We see that chart, we see where we are, we want to keep driving forward. How do we do it? I personally believe we have to put it into people and not bricks, but there are things that need to be done, and we just have to be smart, and there are tough decisions, but we do have to look at things from that. Where do we gain other efficiencies to even get better results? Does that come from, where kids are going to school, and how many kids are in a classroom? And you heard today, even, hey, we're looking at this math curriculum. We didn't need to buy some of the stuff that was there, and we decided not to do it. That's great. That's very smart. I love the proactive approach. Sometimes we do need outside of the box thinking on things, and I think between 7 of us up here and then the greater community, we can come up with some good ideas of things we can do. Understand that we are hamstrung. I don't want to say hamstrung, but it's like a game of chess. Certain things you can move, and certain things you can't move in certain pieces. So I think for the community, it's also important to understand those things that we cannot do. But we do have some decisions to be made, and I just hope and I pray that we as a board would have courage. I think courage is the top virtue because all the other virtues rest upon courage, and I think we need to have the courage to be able to take action where we need to, but also be able to explain it and say, hey, listen, this is not exactly what we want to do, but we have to stand by this decision because it affects all of us. But at the end of the day, if we're doing the right thing for the kids and for the community, we can rest easy at night knowing that we're making the right decision. So that's all I have, and I just ask that we think long and hard about the things that we have to do, not just for this year to bring this budget into balance, but how do we set ourselves up for the future of this county, the kids that are coming into kindergarten, next year. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, I have a couple things that I need consensus from this board on. Some are easier than others, but if you remember last year when we removed VSBA from our services and we started using the school board member alliance, I know we discussed it, of there would be times when we get new policy that we would have our attorney review it because it's not the same services as VSBA. So I need consensus from the board that we understand there are times when we get policy that we're going to have to reach out to our attorney to understand how that policy needs to be written. So anybody have any concerns with consensus on utilizing our attorney? Okay. Do I need to go through each member, Ms. Johnson, or, okay, all right, so we have consensus.
Everybody gave a nod or some form of assent?
Everybody gave a
That's
nod. That is correct.
Mhm.
All right, the second piece that I want to talk about, Ms. Purvis and I have had several conversations, and this is something that she is very passionate about, and I want to support her in it. Several months ago, we talked about a retreat, and we had it scheduled, and then we unscheduled it. But she has a passion to want to do, you can either do it as a retreat or work sessions. So we're not trying to add additional time to our meetings, but she would like to have some of the meetings throughout the year start at 5 o'clock, but start as a work session where we can have candid conversations. It's a public meeting, so it's no different than what we do today. But she wants to have topics, strategic conversations, facility conversations, different topics that we can talk freely. We're not taking any vote, but we're really talking as a board around certain topics. And so she would like to take a look at a possibility and consensus from the board of being able to do some of those work sessions. It won't be every month, maybe 8 or 9, and really, even if it's that many, but it would be more when we have slower months of the agenda. It wouldn't have been tonight, because we had, a good portion. But when there's slower months and we have topics that we can throw in there. So any concerns of having work sessions, it would be from 5 to 6, just like our normal scheduled meeting, but then we would begin our normal meeting at 6 on those nights. Got head nods over here. Good over here? All right. So we have, all right. Consensus on that. All right, the third and final topic that I feel it's time to really talk about is the redistricting for elementary schools in the forest zones. And I would really like consensus from this board to give an action to our executive team. We're at capacity at Forest Elementary. We're at capacity at New London, and I know everyone has a different definition of what's capacity and what's not capacity, but when I walk in a school and I see, or a principal introduces me to a closet where our kids are learning, I have a real concern with that. And it's, growth is not going away in Forest. It's here, it's not going away, and we've got to be able to readjust what the lines are for our elementary schools. And so I would like consensus from this board to give an action item to the executive team to take a look at the forest zone and the redistricting of elementary schools. And I want this plan presented and ready to put in place by August of '25. That gives us almost 4.5 months, but the growth next door to Forest Elementary alone, the building they're not stopping. And we've got kids that are going to be coming in there, and it's right next door to Forest Elementary. We've got to have space. And with the I'll call it underutilization of Otter River, this is an opportunity for us to take a look at all of those elementary schools in the Forest District. I'm not leaving Boonesboro out, so I think it behooves us to look at every single elementary school within the Forest District, Forest Zone, to redistrict for those elementary schools. So do I have consensus from the board to ask the staff to start looking at that? Got a head nod? 3? Yep. Head nod?
Yes.
All right, so we have consensus for that. So at this time, I'm going to ask the executive team to research and come up with a comprehensive plan of redistricting the elementary schools in the Forest Zone. And it is, I would like to see first steps starting in May for more discussion in June. And we need to make a decision quick to be able to implement for the start of the 25-26 school year. Any concerns or questions on that, Mr. Dupere? All right. All right, that's what I had. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Mr. Holbrook. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.